When I was in SMU, one of the things that I did was model swimsuits. Now, things have changed a little bit since that time, but around the swimming pool I still look okay. I just want y'all to know that. Another thing she didn't tell you about me is that because she didn't work hard enough, I lost a congressional race back in 1990. And I counted on Barbara to pull me through, but I didn't win that race. And so I still have somebody to blame for that race, Barbara Deschelle. All kidding aside, Barbara and I have known one another for 22 years now. Actually, before that, I guess. And she was one of the hardest workers I've ever seen in my life in all three of my previous races. That's why I called her immediately and said, Barbara, will you be my 4th Congressional District chairperson? And she agonized over her decision and said, I'd already made a commitment and I can't do that. And I said, well, I'm not going to let you off the hook. In the event that I have an opportunity to circle back around, I want you in my campaign. And so she is now the co-chairman for me in the 4th Congressional District. Perhaps the chairman is up to her, but she's going to be concentrating in this area. And Barbara, I'm so happy to have you on board. This lady is a powerhouse. As you all know, she works so hard, so I'm glad to have you involved in my campaign. She's told you a lot about me, and so I'm not going to be redundant. But let me just say a couple of things, or emphasize a couple of things about my background. In order to be a chief executive, in my opinion, you have to really understand how things work. And it's been my privilege to help create about 3,500 jobs in my life. And it's also been my privilege to run 2 companies, one that had about 1,300 employees, another one that had 2,600 employees. So I understand how to be an executive, I understand how to make tough decisions, and most importantly perhaps, I understand that from time to time you actually have to make a decision. One of the things that we have going on right now in our state government is we have a governor who is a good guy. I served with him when I was in the Senate. But he refuses to make decisions on tough issues. And it was interesting because as I was talking with some of the folks earlier today, before I came up here, they were saying exactly that. He refuses to take a tough stand on tough issues. That's not the way I am. I think that you have to be willing to put yourself out and make those tough decisions. Let me give you a couple of examples. Most recently, we see that this health care bill, which is now the law, our governor said that he would not take a position on it until after it passed. He said he was concerned about it. Well, ladies, we are all concerned about it, but he wouldn't do anything about it until after it passed, and then he said he was against it, that he would not have voted for it. Well, that was too late. The cows were already out of the barn. The decision had already been made, and now we are strapped with about $200 million a year in additional costs for our state that we don't know where that money is coming from. And because of that bill, in my opinion, we are going to put additional pressure on Medicare, on Medicaid, on Social Security, and a variety of other things down the road that impact all of us ultimately. But we didn't take the initiative on the front end to say, we cannot afford this. Yes, it has some redeeming factors about it, but we simply cannot afford it. Had he done that, had he taken that case to the people of Arkansas, in my opinion, Blanche Lincoln would not have cast that vote on Christmas Eve of last year, and we wouldn't have this health care bill today. Do y'all agree with that? So then you take it back another step, and you look at things like the stimulus package. He said it's none of our business. Really? We're paying for it. It is our business. And Evan Bayh, who is a Democrat, as you know, when he decided to retire from the United States Senate, even he as a Democrat, said that if I create one job in the private sector, it will be more than the stimulus bill that's created in the last 6 months. But our governor wouldn't say anything about it. Said it was none of our business. Folks, it is time for us, not as Republicans, but as Americans, to draw a line in the sand and say we are not going to put up with additional spending that is driving our country off of an economic cliff. We simply can't afford to do it. And the buck stops in the governor's office as the chief executive and the president's office as the chief executive of this country, and with our senators and representatives who, in many cases, have not shown the political will that they needed to stop this spiraling spending and get it under control. I had stayed out of politics for 14 years. I'm one of those folks that actually didn't run for re-election. Even though I wouldn't have had an opponent, I didn't run for re-election. The reason being that our founding fathers said, go do a good job, stay there for a while, get across good legislation, make an impact, and then go home. Go back to the farm, go back to your business. That's what I did. And I stayed out of politics for 14 years. If you include working for Senator Hutchinson, running his statewide offices, I'm not counting that because I wasn't an elected official, but I've not been an elected official for 14 years. But when I saw everything that was going on at the national level, I finally said, you know what? We as citizens have got to stand up and do something about it. If it's just getting engaged in a campaign, then that's terribly important. That's why you in this room are so important today. If it's running for county judge, or it's running for mayor, or it's running for justice of the peace, if it's running for United States Congress, and thank God for Beth Ann Rankin, if it's running for the United States Senate, or whatever it is, however you get engaged, this is the year that we simply have to do everything that we can to turn the tide in this country. Now, why is that important for the state of Arkansas? For several reasons. As I started looking around after being out of it for 14 years and looking at what's going on at the federal level, I also started looking at our state. And I started looking at the underlying causes of why we seem to be behind in virtually every single category. You know, Governor Deegan this week in a press release was bragging that we are now 45th in per capita income. Congratulations. And if you're happy with being 45th, well done. I'm not. And I don't think we as Arkansans should be. We have a lot to offer in this country and in this world, and I am not satisfied with being 45th. So how do we fix our underlying problems? The first thing we have to do is fix our tax structure. Because right now in the state of Arkansas, we are 36th, 40th, and 43rd, depending on the metric that you look at, in terms of how we rank versus other states in our tax burden. We have to fix those things because what happens, folks, is that people make decisions with their pocketbooks and they leave our state and they take their money with them, or they decide not to bring their businesses to Arkansas, and it hurts all of us. So we have to attack that. Secondly, we have got to be serious about reducing government regulation and its burden on small businesses in this state. Why should Arkansas not be the most business-friendly state in the entire United States of America? I'll tell you why. The mentality of most people who are in government these days is that if they have a portfolio of 100 employees, next year the mentality is, I need 105 to do my job well. If I have 1,000 pages of regulations that I'm responsible for, to show that I'm doing a good job, next year I might want to have 1,100 pages of regulations. And that's kind of the mindset that often takes place in government these days. So at a time that we have lost 50,000 private sector jobs in the last 4 years, we have added over 4,000 state jobs. So we've increased the size of government by 7.8% while we have been losing private sector jobs.